Hello, everyone. This is Eric, Eric Martindale, alongside with my partner, Austin Luger.
Hello.
And we're back again for episode 2 of Let's Take 5. Let's Take 5 is if you're coming to us for the first time, it's a podcast that's going to be looking at some of the greater artists in film history, be they actors or directors, and taking 5 films that they did, or 5 projects that they did, and that are made their careers more meaningful, more impactful, some of their better films, some of their worst films, but they personify who they ended up becoming. And in this case, the actor that we were looking at in our first episode and continuing with here is Robert De Niro. And the first film that we covered in the previous podcast was The Godfather Part II. Today we are going to be covering The Deer Hunter, followed by Raging Bull, Midnight Run, and Heat. So, leading off with Deer Hunter here, this is a good movie.
It's a really good movie. In fact, it's my second time watching it. It's so good, it's actually a bit intimidating to me. Because it's such a strong 3-act structure in the most untraditional 3-act structure you can have. More theatrically 3 acts.
More traditional, too, in the fact that audiences today watching this film, and for anyone who doesn't know, The Deer Hunter, I guess... to expand on those acts. What are the acts? And then I'll jump into that next part.
Well, we have the first hour, which is them in Pennsylvania. Is it the day before or days before they're...
It's days before they ship off, and then it's the day of the wedding.
This big wedding.
Yeah.
And then the second hour of the film is them in Vietnam. Mm. And the third hour is them home and the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
And... each segment really does get an hour to focus on every emotion that organically comes up and every almost minute little scene. It's a fascinating film.
It's a really good movie. So the reason why I wanted to have Austin talk about the 3-act structure of this movie first was because the act that gives just about... it's more infamous than it's probably famous is the first act of the film, which is a wedding. That's the wedding. Angela is a character in the film. She's marrying Steve, played by John Savage. And at their wedding, they're all about to ship off to Vietnam, save John Cazale's character, who doesn't go. And so it's a celebration of them leaving, but it's also the wedding, but it's also leading up to the wedding. It's how the dress looks. It's how the flowers looks. It's the wedding. It's the reception. It's the after the wedding, and then it's them going hunting after the wedding. And this is, I say it's an hour. It's probably actually longer than an hour. And then it goes to a really quick cut, which is them in Vietnam. But this one, this first hour, you might go, am I watching Deer Hunter?
Right.
If you've never seen the film.
They are hunting a deer.
Yeah.
So there's a clue.
But that's not until like the 55th minute.
Oh, but it helped. They talk about it earlier.
Yeah, they do. But it's this first act of the movie is challenging nonetheless for more casual
I
viewers.
think, especially your first time viewing, since this was my second time, I knew where it was going and how painful the areas we're going to go to are.
Yeah.
So you just kind of keep seeing hints of darkness throughout the first act, as they just don't know what they're preparing themselves for.
Yeah, and as with any sort of paranoia in the late 60s and the early 70s as regards to Vietnam is concerned, and the draft and the sort of government versus citizen type of thing that was going on at the time, there's a lot of there's a lot of questions that they have about what it's going to be like when they get over there, like something they're going to hear is going to prepare them for what it's actually going to be.
I think before we talk anymore, we should probably mention Robert De Niro.
Yeah, we should.
He's in it.
He's in it.
He's the lead.
Yes, he's the lead in it. He plays a character named Mike, which is the... that close circle of friends that you have? Well, Mike's the leader of that.
Yeah.
That's what he is.
And he was such a quiet leader. Mm-hmm. Like, he actually kind of, hides in the group a little bit. And especially, I guess we can go act by act, it seems like.
Sure.
He doesn't feel like the main character of the movie, because he just kind of blends in. There are big moments when you recognize his importance, but he plays normal really well.
Yeah.
And normal is the key word for the first act. And he feels like a little bit smarter than the rest of the guys.
Yes, absolutely.
And he knows that where they're going isn't going to be a Howard Hughes war film of heroicism and joy and that kind of thing.
He's the type of person that you want going to war.
Yeah.
If I may, I mean, I have friends that served overseas in the war, and some of them I go, man, I can't believe you're doing that or you did that. And I'm obviously very proud of them, but at the same time, I have friends that went over there, and I'm like, yeah, that I can see you doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the most interesting scenes and the most foreboding scene in the first act is when they meet another soldier who happens to be at the wedding at this bar.
Yeah, so he's at the wedding, the bar, he's having drinks, and they're trying to glean something from this guy about what it's like over there.
But also you have De Niro really taking a more assertive approach than some of the previous scenes, where he's the one who wants to buy that guy a drink. He wants to kind of tell everyone in this almost empty bar that this guy is a hero, and he admires him because he sees him as a peer. But then this nameless soldier does not see him as a peer because he hasn't been there.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost run a whole episode of a podcast on that scene.
Yeah,
like a lot of scenes in The Deer Hunter. I mean, what did you take that as when you saw that scene? Like,
I took it as a broken man and another man trying to romanticize his brokenness, and he just couldn't handle it, so he just keeps screaming "fuck it."
Yeah, he just says "fuck it." And also looking at these wet behind the ears sort of young pups, as it were,
right?
People that they're gonna change. They're not gonna be the same.
They're gonna change, and they sort of realize that. Like near the end of the wedding, as the day kind of quiets down, you have them talk about things like, "Don't leave me behind."
Yeah.
And why would we ever leave this town? So everything I love is here. Like,
yeah.
You see them start to be scared and worried about what's going to happen, especially after encountering that soldier as well.
Yeah, it's especially after that. So where we are right now in the film is you see, I think, one thing that's broadcast really, really well here, and this plays more into the labor union, blue collar, rough and tough kind of feel, particularly at places in like Pennsylvania in the late '60s and '70s. This is blue collar, and I'm not saying these people know skills. They don't read books. They drink beer and they learn a skill or they learn a trade.
Right.
So you get a real sense of community in this film. From the bars that they visit and the different the type of things the women are interested in, and even the houses. I mean, they live like literally like a football field away from where they work. Okay,
yeah.
And so it's a tight knit community. So in that tight knitness is something that they then try to transpose into one of the most horrific things that happened in the history of the United States of America.
Right.
So.
So what do you think about... Let's look at De Niro in all three of them. I kind of saw him as really, especially after seeing him as Vito Corleone in our last film, where he was kind of so eerily quiet sometimes, but still hints of compassion. This was everything kind of described to me. This guy was a very kind of proud, blue-collar, nice guy. People like him, and he knows how to kind of keep his friends in line.
It's one of the characters you really sort of would expect to be really famous in Americana. His character, Mike, is something, I mean, in an era where, Scarface memorabilia is in every store you go into. It's weird that this character is not more famous for sort of pro-America, go down in the dirt and get your hands dirty type of...
Well, is it... Jump ahead. Is it because he's a bit broken come back too? Do we not highlight that as much?
No, well, I mean,
now we're
probably not. So what ends up happening is, and I think a scene we have to talk about, is after the wedding, the next day, the friend group that we were talking about, 3 of which are going over to Vietnam on a group of six friends total, counting Mike, and they go hunting. They go out deer hunting, which is something that it's established early in the film as something that they do often. Now, this also includes Nick, which is the closest friend of Mike of the group, played by Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
And they go out hunting, and one of the first hints of the severity of Michael is Mike. Mike, I think. He's Mike.
He's Mike.
He's Mike. He's that type of guy. Is when John Cazale's character forgets his boots. Right?
Yeah.
And he has to wear his boots.
Yeah.
What do you think about that when you saw that scene? Or what's happening there?
It was such a scene of... These guys have been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And there are moments in everyone's friendship where you're just tired of their shit. And you just have to say it.
Yep.
I mean, I think there's also other metaphorical things going on, but it was just an entertaining scene of them in such high spirits throughout the entire film, and now that they're going to do the thing that they all like to do, they've done so many times, because Gazale forgets his boots. It's just like, fuck you.
And he won't give him the boots.
No, he will not give him the boots. He's tired of his shit. And I think that's already starting to cause a bit of separateness in his mind of those who are going and those who are not going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on.
Because I believe it's in the same... Made the scene after when he's talking to Christopher Walken, his closest friends, and saying, I wouldn't be deer hunting if it wasn't for you. You know, I wouldn't hunt with just all of the guys. I'm here with you.
I'm here with you. Which gives a sense of camaraderie, which is going to be basically the basis for the entire rest of the film. That and the Meryl Streep character, because she's just as important as those two. Those three, the triangle of them, Linda is the character's name, is the triumvirate of the film.
Right.
But that scene, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that that's probably the most famous line from the film, which is when Robert De Niro won't give him the boots, and he says to Stan, is the character's name, that's John Cazale's character. He says to him, pulls the bullet out of the gun and says, "This is this. This ain't something else. This is this." Mm-hmm. I remember watching the film. Now, if you listen to our previous podcast, you'll know that after seeing the Dirty Grandpa trailer, my girlfriend said, "What happened to Robert De Niro?" And I'm like, "Honey, let's watch The Deer Hunter right now." And this is the film we picked.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Robert De Niro performance.
And I find that fascinating. You mentioned it before, but I didn't want to ask you too much about it.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it now, or do you want to wait till we get through all three acts?
Let's wait till we get through all three acts, because this movie is it's oddly even more complicated than Godfather 2, because of the structure and the threads that are going on and all of the stuff left unsaid.
I guess I feel intimidated because I've only seen it twice.
Yeah, it's that type of movie.
Right.
Yeah. So they end up going to war when one of the most effective cuts since 2001, throwing the bone up in the air. I mean, that...
Well, it's so jarring because you're skipping on things you think you're going to see. Mm-hmm. You think you're going to see boot camp. You think they're going to see their first time coming out of a helicopter. You think you're going to see that. No.
We just jumped to Mike using a flamethrower and roasting people to death. That's what we see.
Right. That was our good old boy.
Yeah.
And now he's this. Mm-hmm. And it was a nice also little parallel to our last film where he shot that guy and hit the cloth caught on fire.
Yes.
We're only reviewing films where he does that.
So you see him committing justifiable homicide, but homicide in the...
You're in war.
You're in war times, right. And he's then captured along with, unbeknownst to him, so we're dealing with coincidence here. Unbeknownst to him, he's caught with the John Savage character Stan, Steven, who was the person who was just getting married in the previous scene, and then to Christopher Walken's character Nick, this is where he just totally goes into his own here.
Well, I didn't think it was much of a coincidence. I just assumed they're all going to be in the same area because I assumed they're all in the same.
Yeah, battalion. They didn't they at first they did not recognize each other.
Oh, okay,
which I think speaks to larger themes than just there's unspoken themes there.
Well, you started not to be able to see your friend that you knew.
Exactly. That's a not so subtle way into that. So maybe they did, or were some that and maybe incorrect about that, but
we have a huge time jump. Anything can happen.
Exactly. So what's going on in this scene when they get captured?
Well, this is how I learned what Russian roulette was. When I saw this in high school. Mm-hmm. They are held captive and they are forced to play this with other people who seem to be really enjoying it. It's not subtitled. You just kind of really...
it not being subtitles, perfect.
Because it's just chaos, it's confusing, it's madness. You see money being thrown around, and there is a bullet in that chamber.
Yes, so American soldiers have been captured and they're being forced to play Russian roulette in one of the most horrific, fascinating, beautifully... this scene right here is why I think this is Robert De Niro's best performance.
Okay.
Along with everything else that goes aside to it, I never thought in my life I would be able to empathize with someone in Vietnam being forced to play Russian roulette. And the friend aspect there plays into a huge thing. I mean, these are the same people that were in, or some of the same people that were in the wedding in the previous scene that we just spent an hour and 15 minutes left. Now, Stan's character, I keep doing that, Steven's character, John Savage, whose wedding it was, refuses to play Russian roulette. So he's forced to sit in a pit where there's rats, and he's going to die in there. They put him in there to die. And the pit is underneath the water, so he's submerged in the water. And Nick, who's Christopher Walken's character, comes up to De Niro, Mike, and tells him, oh, God, what are we going to do about Steve? And the first thing out of De Niro's mouth is he's done. He's gone. Forget about him.
It was so cold, and he didn't entirely become that soldier we talked about earlier, but he is now someone who, we don't know how long he's been there. Mm-hmm. He's changed, and there's a new element to what life and death and camaraderie has to mean now. Mm-hmm. When he's looking at, there are 12 people in that area. Yeah. They're extremely outnumbered. Mm-hmm. Steve's all the way over there in a pit underwater. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But he's the leader of the group.
Yeah, he's the same thing. Yes, it's still that leader of the group mentality here, and Nick is still looking to him like he is. And Mike says he's done, forget about him. And almost immediately, and I don't even take it as cold. I take it as, certainly it is cold if we're back in that Pennsylvania town and we're thinking about it, it's cold. But here, with this going on, it's practical.
It's almost factual.
Yes, it's almost factual, and we're not going. I can. It's almost Mike saying to Nick, "I can save you. We can save each other. We can't save him, or we can't save each other if we're thinking about someone who's probably already dead and gone." Yeah. So they're forced to play. Naturally, Nick and Mike are forced to play Russian roulette together, and this is the scene where the plan devised is Robert De Niro wants to play with 3 bullets in the 6-round chamber because he's gonna need 3 bullets to spring his trap. This scene is unbelievable. This scene is incredible. This scene is one of the best films in the history of cinema. Period.
It is so unnerving to watch. It is upsetting. Well, everything involving Russian roulette is upsetting.
Yeah,
and you talk about that line being the iconic line from the movie. To me, this is just imagery of what's iconic. Mm-hmm. It's the gun to your head. And
this is this. This ain't something else.
Yeah, this is this. And especially since he talked so much about the one bullet in the previous act. You just need the one bullet to take down the deer. Mm-hmm. Anything else is crueler. And now we're seeing we have 3. Mm-hmm. Which I know is not the exact same context, but he's now kind of adding more violence to the situation.
Yeah.
When he was trying to avoid it earlier.
Yes. So what ends up happening once the 3 bullets in the gun are in the gun? The thing about Russian roulette is you're paying in Russian roulette. You have a 50% chance of losing or being the person next to you. However, on any given chamber to your head, the odds are you're not going to shoot yourself. It's 1 in 6, right?
Right.
Well, with 3 bullets in the gun, now the odds are against you that 1 or the 2 of you are going to die in the next couple bullets. In order to gain the trust of the local soldiers there that are holding them captive, they have to, as he says, put an empty chamber in that gun. So they have to hold the gun to their head, 50% odds, click, no. Then it's given to Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, the odds are he is going to be shot, and he has to shoot, and he has to come up empty, and the gun has to go back to Robert De Niro. They don't have a choice.
Well, this is what I thought about, and this isn't me criticizing the film, it's me curious about the characters. Did they really have to do the test?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so, because if I'm playing Russian roulette against someone who's holding me captive and I want more bullets in my gun, I have to prove I'm a crazy person.
Well, if you start shooting,
it
starts happening.
Yeah, true, but you have a much better, if they're relaxed and not thinking you're going to do it, of succeeding in what you're going to do. He had plans to succeed, not to...
I saw that as questioning his decision making a bit. Like he's in the darkness.
Both of those work. I think he's so practical and so pointed that he had that plan made up before he went up there, and he was going to stick to it.
Yeah.
Now, that means that Nick has to play along.
Right.
So he had to put a gun to his head with there's only 5 rounds left.
Three bullets.
3 bullets. So the odds are not in his favor. It's a 60% chance he's going to shoot himself in there.
Yep.
There, I did some quick math.
Good job.
Thank you. Did some quick math there. So without going into the intricacies too much, after this scene is over, they both survive. Spoilers. We're
spoiling the entire film.
Yeah,
we're literally going hour by hour.
Point by point. Well, it's that type of film that almost it needs. If you're going to talk about this,
it's
film,
almost a trilogy of
You almost kind of have to talk about it that way.
So, you want to go to the third act now?
Let's go to the third act.
Okay, they return home. They are not the people they were when they, at the wedding. Mm-hmm. And this is when I really like De Niro's performance a lot, because this is when he is trying to portray normal when he really was just living normal, acting-wise.
Yeah.
And you watch the struggles of so many elements, and you're watching him, and the scenes he has with Meryl Streep are just, acting masterclass.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. So there's a lot of, I think this is a good point to bring up a lot of fact, maybe fiction about the trivia sort of surrounding this film.
Sure.
There's a lot of trivia out there about this film that almost make it one of the craziest movies I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
I mean, if you just look up any of it, from the fact that the director, Michael, I guess we should say, and I'm sorry for pronouncing it incorrectly, it's Michael Cimino.
Is that right?
Cimino?
We have no idea.
We have no idea. He made them get Pennsylvania driver's license.
Yeah. Actually, I heard De Niro did that.
No, see, yeah. Well, De Niro basically,
the director did that.
Yeah, he made him get Pennsylvania driver's license, made him live there for a while, made them had sections of the movie that didn't have script so that they could just act and just do their things, and that way they would learn the characters. I mean, there's an infamous scene later where Christopher Walken spit in Robert De Niro's face. That was the take that they kept. I mean, there's so much of that sort of lore surrounding this film.
Well, I have a few more as well, because De Niro, when he wanted to prepare for the Vietnam scenes, he actually went there for a while and sampled opium and did all sorts of things to really get the culture. And this one is not about this film, but it kind of shows his allegiance to the craft, even when it's not the craft he should be focusing on. One of his major reasons of staying so fit in this movie was because he was begging to get Raging Bull made for years. So they didn't have a script yet for Raging Bull, but he knew soon he wants to play Jake LaMotta. So he decided to be really buff in The Deer Hunter.
Well,
they paid
good.
Off. Absolutely. And I think the saddest bit of trivia, and to call it trivia is trivializing it. I hate myself. Is John Cazale, who we mentioned, is one of the people who did not go. He is an incredible actor who was also in The Godfather Part II. Dog Day Afternoon, The Conversation. Those are his 5 films I've ever been in, and during production of this film, he had cancer. Robert De Niro gave a portion of his salary to pay for all of his insurance because he couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And he died shortly after the film finished production, and he never saw the film.
Yeah, he never saw the film. He met Meryl Streep on this film, and him got engaged while they were working on the film. The studio did try to replace John Cazale. In case anyone, we're talking about Fredo from The Godfather here.
Right.
Okay, this guy was in 5 films in his life, and
the boyfriend of Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah, and 3 of them won Best Picture, and all of them are nominated for Best Picture. So as far as shooting 100%, this guy has the best filmography ever.
Yes.
5 films he's in.
You wish he lasted longer, of course.
Yeah,
but
I can't imagine.
And Legacy, this is perfect.
Unbelievable character. And so they shot a lot of his scenes first.
All the Pennsylvania stuff for him, yeah.
which is probably a good idea. And thank God he's in the film because I think he's wonderful in this film.
Oh, he's so
and
good.
he's my least favorite of the friends because he's so good. It's playing that like bad guy. He's the most antagonistic of the group.
Well, I think it's because he's trying to struggle with him not going.
Well, I think that's all of their struggles, but his is more so. I feel like the other two friends, they don't want to go.
Right.
He almost has this feeling of, I want to be a man. I want to be tough.
Right.
I want to be like, the whole thing with the whole gun incident.
Right. So he keeps holding this gun on him, and De Niro's character just really keeps telling him, what do you need that for? Mm-hmm. Because De Niro knows the real situations when you need to have a gun on you.
Yeah.
And you don't need them in Pennsylvania right now.
Yeah. Oh God, this is a wonderful film. This is a wonderful film. So as we were saying, they get back, and speaking on the performances, I did want to say something. You touched on how I was going to say The Godfather. How when they came back, it's a lot of how we cope now, how we deal now, and the post aftermath. And these were your favorite moments of Robert De Niro. Mm-hmm. And I do get that subtleness that makes the third act so great is more mundane compared to, yes, okay, everyone's going to pay attention to you and think you're great when you're screaming and you're upset and you're in a moment of distress.
Right.
I've seen Mystic River.
Yes.
I'll probably see it. That's why Sean Penn won.
Yeah.
That was the best I'd ever seen it done. So I don't want to take anything away from the third act because Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro in that next scene in the house, they're throwing a party for the welcome home of Mike when he gets there, and he never shows up to the party. He waits for everyone to leave, and then he goes into the house, and there is a scene with Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro where they don't talk about anything. Mm-hmm. But everything is left unsaid, and you feel it, and it is you got Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro in a room acting together, and this is where I think a lot of that improv came into play. It's so good.
I was watching that scene, and according to this biography I was reading, De Niro's the one who insisted on Meryl Streep being in this movie. Yeah. She was kind of only had smaller parts until then.
I think he said she's the best actress alive, right?
I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
He kept wanting to hire all these New York actors and such. And I was watching these scenes with the two of them throughout the third act, and maybe I'm wrong. I can't think of another De Niro film where he's being romantic.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm missing an obvious one right now, but I've never seen this kind of tenderness
to that degree
to what he's able to do as a character.
Yeah. I think in an odd, unjustifiable way, he's romantic in Raging Bull, but we'll get into that.
Well, that's a next week.
But that's coming up. But as far as pure, the thing is, the way he sees the Linda character, I think, is it's that weird. You are basically the big brother. The unspoken thing here is that Linda and Nick, the Christopher Walken character, are in love with each other, and Mike complicates that. But so there is a big brother and a protection angle going on, but he's definitely in love with her,
right?
And she may be with him, but they do sleep together, and it'd almost be better if they didn't. Because it seems like they're reaching for... It's a coping mechanism.
Well, it's trying to return to normalcy.
Yeah, it's trying to feel something, you know? Like they're so emotionally dead and numb inside because Nick does not come home. Christopher Walken's character is still over playing Russian roulette.
Which is now leading to the end of the film.
The final part of the film.
Which is to me, is the real iconic imagery when... Nick goes back.
Yes.
And
you see the fall of the whole thing.
Sorry, Mike goes back.
Mike goes back in the fall of Saigon. It's done with a lot of stock video, and it's obvious that it's stock video, but that doesn't change how powerful it is.
Well, the stock video is the real stuff.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. It works. It works so good. So everyone's trying to get the hell out, and Mike goes back in to get his buddy.
Because he said he wouldn't leave him behind, and what he finds is... There's a reason why Christopher Walken won the Oscar.
Yeah.
It's so that he finds him back in Russian roulette tables and whatnot. He's not forced there. He is just there because that's all his brain seems to comprehend. He can't recognize Mike on the spot. he's there, and Mike is begging him to stop.
And he knows. They both know. That's the thing, is Nick pretends like he doesn't know Mike. And maybe he doesn't at first, but I cannot believe he didn't at the end. And then, of course, he says one shot to him, which is the reference to it. He knows who he is. And the tragedy here being that Nick will have, well, he dies. They play Russian roulette against each other again, and Nick shoots himself in the famous one-shot scene where he shoots himself, which is a reference to the deer, which should only take one shot. So he dies, and then the tragedy here is that De Niro left him behind. Mike left him behind.
Yeah. And talking about De Niro's acting some more, when Mike is pulling the trigger on his head this time, it is such a different performance. Yeah. Because he's in the determined... there's no world but war mode in the second act. In the third act, he can picture his home. He can picture Linda.
That's a great point.
And it's such a thing of like, you see him sacrificing for the sake of his friend, but he happened to live. Also, too,
what you find out very, very subtly through the film is actually that Nick has a child back home because the wedding rat in the very beginning of the film, the wife, Angela's son, is for later years was a point of speculation for Deer Hunter fans about whether or not the child was actually Stevenson. It was in fact confirmed by the director that the child is Nick's. And there's enough in there for that. And there's one more point, just talking about Christopher Walken. This also has my favorite Christopher Walken performance. In particular, that scene that I would say is when the doctor walks up to him and he's in he's in Vietnam in the hospital, and they ask him to state his, I can't remember if it's his mother or father's, maybe both, birth date to verify who he is.
Right.
And he either cannot remember or cannot understand why that could possibly be important right now. And it is so heartbreaking. That scene, and then this is post this is just after the famous Russian roulette scene.
Yeah.
And I remember looking over at my girlfriend during that scene. She's Niagara Falls going on. So it's really, really touching. I don't want to underplay Christopher Walken, but the person we're talking about is Robert DeNiro.
Of course, De Niro. I just wanted to mention Walken's really good here. I know he's become a bit of a meme-ish kind of joke, but we should remember he's an incredible actor.
Yeah.
Who just decides to take a break sometimes.
Yeah. Maybe a murderer, too. But
what?
Natalie, what?
That'll be our serial-like podcast.
Exactly. But anyway, so the absolute masterclass of acting that Robert De Niro puts on in this film is just absolutely astounding. Again, I don't understand why the character is not more popular in Americana, especially that this ain't something else.
I think it's so difficult.
Yeah.
I think it's too difficult of a character.
It's almost, and the subject matter is just maybe too raw. I mean, right. I guess, too, if you're going to make a popular character from Americana or American history, you're not going to pick someone from Vietnam.
That's true. Well, it's episode 2. This is such an important Robert De Niro performance. I'm so happy I got to revisit it. Also, it's really upsetting, and I needed to take a walk, I think.
Okay, before you go, what last question?
What? Oh,
one last question.
Of course. Why is this in our top 5? Our take 5?
Why is that? Because I felt like you couldn't do a Robert De Niro without having Robert De Niro's best performance, in my opinion.
No, and it's something where...
Maybe
by the end of this set, I'll know what my favorite is. But watching this, it is so not showy. And it's very showy, and then it still is. It's one of those acting things of really kind of giving it to the person in the scene.
Oh yeah,
that's what he does the whole movie.
The partnership he shares with every person on screen, and it's unfortunately it's not even a dying breed. It's an extinct one. Movies aren't made this day to. No one could be this still in a movie, ever. Especially, maybe a Best Picture winner, maybe, but, I mean...
It's not as common.
It's just not. It's just not.
Have you seen Coming Home?
No.
It's okay. I just want to know, because Jon Voight beat him for the Oscar.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it was another Vietnam vet coming home. That's the point of the title.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious if you one day see that film and wonder, Jon Voight's better.
And also, John Wayne gave out the Best Picture award for this. This movie won Best Picture,
yes.
And he didn't like that it won Best Picture because he did Green Berets, and he just thought that's how...
That's how you do it, right?
John Wayne is very popular in Americana.
Yes, he is.
I like John Wayne. He's okay.
We'll one day do his set.
Why not?
Why not? So, thank you all for listening. This is episode 2 of Let's Take 5. There's a episode page for all of our episodes at theartimmortal.com. We'd love for you to leave a comment. Tell us what you think of The Deer Hunter and all of its 3 acts. You can send us an email if you think your thoughts are too long for a comment and you don't want anyone else to see them. You can send that to let's take 5 at theartimmortal.com. You can see some tweets of ours at The Immortals Pod, which is another podcast at The Art Immortal that I co-host that you should check out. But also you should check out Eric's brilliant YouTube page, Constant Diversion.
Yes, the Constant Diversion. I look at a more in-depth review of video games and story structure in video games, and as we said, it's looking at games from a unique perspective. Love it or hate it. If you care about that stuff, hopefully you find out something new about it. So,
if you liked what we did the past 2 episodes, imagine that for Dark Souls.
Yes, yes. By the time you're hearing this, my Dark Souls 3 review should be out. So,
ooh, that's exciting.
And a look at the whole franchise. If you don't know what I'm talking about, move along.
Well, your first one does actually work as an intro to the series.
Yeah.
The one you did about Dark Souls 1.
Exactly. So I did do a review on Dark Souls 1, which is a very popular video game, which is trying to stretch the medium in, I think, very, very important ways. Ways that are not always the best fiscally ways, but certainly stuff that I'm more interested in the art rather than...
There's some stillness in that game.
There's a lot of stillness in that
Absolutely. Game. And you can catch us next Friday as we're going to review the 3rd film in our Robert De Niro set, which is Raging Bull.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna be a podcast.
It sure is.
So my name is Austin.
And my name is Eric.
We'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with foam. God bless America, my home.